Welcome to Beast TV. Tonight, from the shadowy swamps of Fouke, Arkansas, we have Keith Crabtree, the man who portrayed the Fouke Monster in the movie Legend of Boggy Creek. So get you a fresh dip and buckle up. Larry Porch II, how you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing as good as a fat kid eating cake. How about you?
Yeah, doing pretty good. What kind of week have you had?
Well, I've been working, so this is a PG rated show, ain't it?
Yeah.
All right, we'll just move on, man.
Well, it's been a busy week. I cannot believe it's already Thursday night. I've been busier than a one-legged man in a kick fight.
I hear you.
I'm really excited about our show tonight to have the one and only Keith Crabtree. He's just a fantastic guy and a good friend. And so we want to encourage everybody that's watching our show tonight. If y'all have questions about the movie, The Legend of the Boggy Creek, or anything pertaining to Fouke, Arkansas, then just put your questions in all caps, and we'll get those questions to Keith. Well, Larry, do you want to go ahead and introduce our guest?
I sure will. This man, he don't really need any introduction. His family name's almost as synonymous to the Bigfoot world as Patterson Gimlin. He played the Fouke Monster in the original movie Legend of Boggy Creek. He has some good stories to share with us tonight about growing up in Fouke, about his Uncle Smokey, making the movie, and just what he's been doing in the past year or two in research. So I'd like to welcome Keith Crabtree. How are you doing?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Thank y'all for having me. Life's getting more interesting the older I get. Seems like I'm staying in the woods more than I used to when I was sleeping on a creek bank when I was 11 and 12 years old by myself, camped out.
Well, we're really excited to have you on tonight. And the Legend of Boggy Creek was pitched to Hollywood by Charles Pierce after newspaper articles started emerging about sightings of a creature in Fouke, Arkansas. The movie studios weren't interested, so Mr. Pierce just filmed it himself, and the movie made its debut in Texarkana, and it was a huge hit. Once the movie distributors got wind of the publicity, they came crawling back to Mr. Pierce. It was sort of like the Blair Witch Project of its time. Accounts of the Fouke Monster wasn't something that started in the late 60s, but they go all the way back to the early 1900s. I'd kind of like to start this podcast by just asking Keith that when you look back at your childhood, were there things that happened that once you got older made sense while family members might have been cautious about what might be lurking around in the swamps and woods?
Yeah, the older I get, the more I look back, and it's like my grandmother lived right on Boggy Creek, and she kept us down there and kept the brush out from under the pin oak trees. And I'm starting to wonder if that was so we could see what was down there in the woods if we looked that direction. And Uncle Buddy, he bought 6 acres, I believe, down on further in Jonesville, and seemed like clearing the thicket was a big deal. And when I look back now, I think they knew, because my first remembrance of anything happening would have been in the early 60s when all the adults, everybody gathered up and they was getting their guns and they was going down there. I believe Uncle Buddy and a few others, they all run the roads for hours that night. So I didn't think much about it at that time. And like I said, I used to camp out, but not no more, not by myself. It don't happen.
Well,
The
you
stories of that I've heard, everybody's heard most of them that's in the movie, but I haven't heard anything about the busload of kids over in Bright Star, Arkansas, which is almost to Bloomberg, Texas, down there in southern Millican. You used to hear something about that, but you don't hear any more about it. You don't hear about the sighting up to the fertilizer plant there on Oak Street. There's a little waterway right up in there. Uh, they were sightings, alleged sightings in Texarkana out by where Cooper Tar is, the old fertilizer plant. A lot of people don't even know what the building is. Right now, there's a freighting company using it. There's a lot to keep up with. You know, I've always said if just 1% of all of it is true, it exists, and I have no doubt anymore. I have never doubted it. When my cousin seen what he's seen in the movie, the scene in the movie about that one, he was in a state of shock, and he didn't lie. You know, he's an honest person even when he was young. So I really don't know where to start at on everything. There's so much that to be said. I remember when 2 men stopped on the side of the highway down there during that time, got out and scratched one another up, and made a false police report, and they found one another's hide under their fingernails and charged them and fined them for it. You know,
uh
you got to weed out the truth, and it's hard to do, but I'm a firm believer. I am a firm believer in it. Uncle Smokey, he he's a woodsman. He growed up. Their meat came out the woods back then. They lived in a house that they built. They lived on Boggy Creek. He knew hard times, and I can remember when he come back, moved back from Alaska. He'd gone up there working, and that was in the '60s. And we moved up from South Louisiana in the '60s. And me and my brothers used to go down on Boggy Creek, homemade spears, and kill snakes with them. Uh, we took Uncle Smokey's big homemade hooks that him and Thurman Connolly won the Alligator Gar rodeo that was sponsored by Sears Corporation, and heated them on Grandma's cook stove and straightened them out and retempered them. And we'd go down Boggy Creek with homemade spears, Chinaberry sticks, and that's where we could get one about every other throw with them. Just uh, that we had a bind that we swung across the creek on when we come back on. And I guess we swung on it too many times, and there was always water moccasins up and down that creek. And you didn't want to slip your grip, I'm going to tell you.
I can imagine.
You did not want to slip your grip. I was going across one day, and we'd always done it by our solo, just one of us. And John Paul, we lost him back in '81, but when I went to swing across, we watched them Tarzan movies when we was kids. We learned how to get across that creek when we wanted to. And as I went to swing, he jumped on it with me, and he wouldn't hold both of us. It did not take me long to get up out of that creek. Not long at all. Dale Burgess lived on the south side of Burgess Road there across from my grandmother Crabtree. And I remember as a kid going up and down that creek and never thinking nothing. I can remember the story about they heard something one night out in the fence row, something sounded like something tied up in the fence. And whitetail deer ain't always been in southwest Arkansas. They were brought in back, as they say, back in the day, and they heard something down there in the fence row one night, and they said, well, it's probably just a little old deer done got tangled up in the fence, so they didn't go look. I don't know why they didn't go look. I have my suspicions now, but I feel like they knew even back then that there was something in them woods down there. I believe I believe there's a movie titled There's Something in Them Woods. Right. But that's Boggy Creek. There's always been something there.
So out of all your childhood adventures, your hunting trips, your fishing trips along that creek, did you ever have anything happen that you look back on now and say that may have been it?
Well, not really. I really haven't had what you'd call any experiences other till 1972. Well, it's pre-1971. Monroe Smith and I were going coon hunting with the dogs. And we got down there behind Mr. Peavy's land on the pipeline on Sulphur River. And we got the dogs out. And they were good dogs. They knew to go hunt. You hiss them up on the, tell them, whoop them up, get them go out there hunting, find the coons. And we got them out the truck, and they was in front of us about 40, 50 yards going down that pipeline. Then all of a sudden we heard a noise. I'd never heard before. Now, at that time, I had heard panthers, and I knew what panthers sounded like. And that would be my first experience, would have been that right there, whatever we heard. And when we looked up, the dogs were already back in the truck, and we couldn't drag them out that truck. They wouldn't come back out. And I looked at Monroe. I said, "You think we might ought to go to the house?" He said, "I believe so." And he went on a coon hunt trip that night.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good indication. Whenever that happens, it's time to go.
Yeah. We had hunted the dogs before. They were good coon dogs, but whatever it was we heard, they ain't never heard before either. Right. And they let us know right quick we didn't need to be down there. I think down after Uncle Smokey built the 80-acre lake that he built, and we wasn't scared of the woods back in them days. I don't know what it is. Maybe it comes with the knowledge of and time, and you realize that anything could have happened. And now that I'm a staunch believer in Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever it be, the Yeti and all that. Even the video that I sent to you, there's a silhouette in it, and then that whatever it is flies in and flies out. That was New Year's Eve this year. And then on January 25th at West Fork of Kelly Bayou on Highway 71, that 8-foot tree stump out there. And then when I got turned around and come back and it wasn't there, and I definitely know what a grizzly bear is. I've been face to face with one. A friend of mine had a bear that he took around and wrestled, brought into the bars and stuff. A hog ain't gonna be 8 foot tall. If it is, I sure don't need to be in the woods.
I agree.
I smell good all the time, and there's just lots going on, and that'd be my only 3 incidents right there that to date, other than finding the track with research partner Tanya, and where we went up in the mountains. There's a lot going on in my mind right now, and the gears wasn't grinding back when I was young like they're grinding now.
Yeah.
There's one person. If anybody ever had a sighting that I want to wish that sighting on, because he horse laughed to me because of my belief. And there's no way I'll take a horse laughing. I will get evidence that he has to believe. Or I hope I get it in time before I go, because I want him to know.
Yeah.
He horse laughed the wrong person. I'm on a mission.
Well, you were talking about the lake that your uncle built,
Yes.
Uncle Smokey. Now,
Right.
that's called Crabtree Lake. And he's the only person that I know of that you can actually go to Google Maps and pull it up and actually see how big that lake is that he built.
It was right at 80 acres.
I
It spills away. What the spillway on it, the overspill on it, and it goes right down into guess what? Days Creek. What Days Creek go into? Sulphur River.
Right.
The other creek flows into Days Creek, Boggy.
Boggy.
Yeah, you got it right there. So it's I walked back when I was a kid. I've been all the way on Boggy Creek from Highway 71 through the woods to where it spills into Days Creek at. And a lot of people don't know it, but the creek actually runs back up to behind where John Snyder lived, up there close to Antioch Church. And then it goes back down through what we call the Bat Flats, and then on down into Days Creek.
And
so that's a pretty good little jaunt through there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't Dave's Creek flow east to west into the Sulphur River?
Dave's Creek actually flows out of Texarkana, goes down on South State Line, and comes back in and crosses Highway 237, and then comes in back in behind where all the bishops lived back at the time. And there's a place in there called Tin Can Hole. Uncle Smokey took me fishing there twice. And Aunt Marie used to go down there fishing all the time. So you can't get in there now. All the property's posted. And when you go down there, Days Creek, Boggy flows into Days goes into Sulphur. And when you're down in there, you in the bottoms.
Yeah.
You down there. You're deep. You're deep in the woods at that point.
Let's talk about when you got out of the Marines. And first of all, I want to thank you for your service that you did in Vietnam. That's something that I hold close to my heart. And when you got back out of the service, you got involved in making the movie. Why don't you tell us some behind the scenes stories about making that movie.
We
Remember PG.
yes, definitely. Back in the day, I could have told that and caused divorces, but no, we're not going there. I was running pretty wild. You know, I hadn't got back. I hadn't got over all the, I guess, wild oats and whatever they call it, and I was wild, and I was between jobs, and I was at Uncle Willie's service station, and Uncle Smokey come walking up, and he said, "I got something I need you to do." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, you ain't working right now." I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Well, I want you to be the monster in this movie they're gonna make." And I looked at him, I kind of laughed. I said, "Do what?" He said, "Yeah, he'll pay you minimum wage and and everything." So I looked at Uncle Smokey and he said, "You're gonna do this?" I said, "Yes, sir." And I did it. So we get down there in the bean field and stuff. We're doing all this, going here and there. We went out there where that three-toed track was cast. Uh, that's on the upper end of Boggy Creek where all the little springs and branches gather to flow into it. And that was Uncle Willie's property, and he had it leased. And Mr. Kennedy, I think, was working for whoever or farming it, but I remember him. And we was out there, and they had come in with a motor coach, motorhome, and working out of it. And there's a lot of places down there you can't get that thing. We shot that scene, then we went on down there across the main line ditch on Highway 134. We got down there and shot the scene where, as I call him, Chucky, Charles Pierce's son, was running across the bean field to tell the landlord about the creature they seen down there. And we're down there. I believe that house is still standing. I'm not sure, but I think all the fences is down and everything. And from that point, we moved up to the mainline ditch and shot a scene there at mainline ditch that I think was supposed to be great uncle James Crabtree's sighting and stuff. Or I'm not sure, but Uncle Buddy was portraying whoever it was supposed to have that. And I was fresh out of the Marine Corps, and that scene went after just a couple of seconds. I was after sighting, he changes the shells in the shotgun to the buckshot, and I'm supposed to go up at bank. And I don't know if y'all not familiar with it, but if you look in that movie, that bank was steep even back then, and I went up it rapidly because I was right out of the Marine Corps. I was in good shape. When we run the deer dogs, Daryl Jones told me he ain't going with me no more because I outrun the dogs. And we went from that scene to the Charlie Walraven scene.
Right.
Now, that's down on Fairland Road, Main Street going out of Fouke, and down there close to Uncle Willie's property where the bean field was. And in the thicket down there around that curve where it happened, they took that Charlie Walraven scene verbatim where it happened at. In his old 50 model Ford car, they used it. And it shows me going across the road, and I'm out there in the woods waiting to see if it was a take, are they going to have to shoot it again? And I see a truck come by, and I know who's in that truck. And it got down there, and it didn't make it past that second curve. I seen them brake lights come on, and I'm in that suit out there, and I know this feller, and I think it took me 2 seconds to get out that suit. And all of them hollering and hey, 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 And I'm like, yeah, come on out here, Jack Allen. I get my arms around you. I got behind me a big old pin oak, and I waited for him to get there, but Uncle Smokey got him first. After that, I was leery about having it on in the woods and where we was at, especially if we was close to a road or something. And I won't forget that. That's a weird feeling. You think, well, everybody gonna be shooting at you if they don't know that this movie's being made.
Yeah.
One thing led to another. We got that done. We went down there and filmed the part where they shoot me in the chest. I believe that was Travis. And I dropped to my knees. And that fog that you see in them scenes, that machine was rented in Little Rock. I not only was the monkey in the movie, I was flunky on the set because I got to drive to Little Rock and get it. So one thing leads to another. We get past that part. And we're down there. We're doing the preparation for the traps to go on trap line. That particular morning, I'm a little bit late. And I knew they were going to start early because I knew Uncle Smokey. He's going to be out there early. So here I go. I'm in that 1969 Oldsmobile 442 with outrun them big Chrysler 440s and stuff in it. And I'm trying to hurry, and I done burn all the back tires off, and they kind of slick. I went around that one curve and slid over in the ditch, and I'm up there, and they can hear me trying to get out that ditch in that car. And finally, I just floored it and come on out and got down there. And Uncle Smokey, he looked at me. He said, well, he said, I ain't got to worry about cleaning my ditches out now. It looks like you done did. Yes, sir, I done pretty good. I said, there's about 50 yards up there that's going to drain real good. We went on and proceeded to do the scenes and stuff with the traps and Travis and everything. Then I'm trying to remember. We went over, and I believe it was Trap Lake area, and shot a scene. And after that, they just took a bunch of scenes of me out in the woods, and then they was doing the trailer house scenes and stuff. The scene with Mary Beth and them, I was there, and at the old house. The old house is still standing. I went down there the other day to check that out. Louis Search's house. The front porch just fell in, but the actual house is still standing.
Now, that's the house that the Fords and the Turners.
No, sir. That's where Mary Beth is portraying Lena Cersei, and Lena said Mary Beth put something over the window. There's a chill in here. The baby's going to catch a cold. I was the one outside the window there, and I'm going to tell you, you down there in Jonesville, and them people, they shoot straight. And I'm wanting to hurry up and get it done. And finally, they got all the footage of me that they wanted, and they cut me loose. And when it come to the Fords up there, I didn't do that part. That was not me that run the hand through the bathroom window. Now, who it was, I don't know. I talked to a lady today that said it was Steve Ledwell. She seen my shirt and my cap on, and she said, "Are you from Fouke?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Well, she says I knew Chuck and them." Said she went to school with Chuck and everything. I said, "Oh, really?" Yeah. And we got in conversation, and she told me some pretty interesting things about it, what little bit she knew about it. And she said Steve Ledwell was the one that had the suit on other than me. Now, I've heard his name, but I've never verified that, so I really don't know. And then Uncle Smokey, that getting time for the pipelines to kickoff and the work starting, and Uncle Smokey and Charles B. Pierce, they said, well, we about got all the footage of you we need. And I said, okay. And I went off on the pipeline. Next thing I know, I'm getting VIP invitation to a movie. And I go. And I'll be honest with you, this remake, redigitized in whatever it is I seen stuff that I'd never seen before. And I watched that movie a lot of times, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The movie, it's worth, and if you can go to a theater and see it in a theater, don't miss that chance. Now, there was a lot of controversy about people not getting paid and stuff, and I can't verify any of that because I had one off the pipeline. I was paid minimum wage. I was made promises that weren't kept, but it wasn't on paper, and I really can't say one way or the other that anybody was wronged, but a lot of people felt like they should have been financially compensated a little bit more after everybody started finding out how much the movie made. And I know the reason why Uncle Smokey and Charles B. Pierce had fallen out. And that reason was he did not agree with one scene that was put in that movie because he didn't want the people of Fouke looking like idiots.
Right.
So that was the falling out there. It wasn't money. With Uncle Smokey, it wasn't about money. It was about getting the truth out there. And now I've seen some documentaries and some other movies that have been made that there's a couple of deals in it that's not true. I'm not going to go into detail on them. And I've met Lyle Blackburn. I consider him a friend. He came to the house to question me. I seen him at the Easy Mart, at the Monster Mart down there. He says, could he come and interview me? I said, yeah. He said, well, I ain't got 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes at the most. I said, all right, I'll be at the house. I'll be waiting on you. Told him where it was. I think it's about 6 hours later he left. And he looked at me. He said, I've got more information out of you than I have everybody else I've talked to. I said, well, I was there during the making of it, and he was glued. He was glued to it because he's like knowing everything that I told him was correct, and he's kind of, I gotta go. I said, okay.
Lyle is very educated.
Oh yeah.
On the facts, and Lyle also has an excellent documentary.
Yeah.
On it, and if you haven't seen it, that's definitely worth checking out. And Lyle was really good friends with your Uncle Smokey. As a matter of fact, he was a pallbearer at Uncle Smokey's funeral.
Yeah.
And
well,
so
that's where, if I'm not mistaken, that's where I met him, and I can't call the other fella's name. I think that's where I met him at. They got pictures down there and stuff of me, and it just kicked off. It's got my interest back up in it, where it might not have happened if it hadn't have been for Lyle. And it's addictive.
Yeah,
it's addictive, very addictive. Shane Church's footprint I'm holding is one of the most intimidating things I've ever touched, and I held it for him to get a picture of, and it tells me if I go in the woods, I'm not going by myself. Yes, I leave apples and I leave garlic where I go. I've watched, and the more I learn, it seems that the word garlic comes up quite a bit. So I started leaving more garlic than apples. And there's several places that I will not disclose right now, but because I want to go in there stealth and just be me and one other person, and it won't, it will not be at night because you can't see at night. I don't believe it'd do any good to try and get a photograph of something out there when it's dark.
Well,
Uh,
that's one spooky place at
yes, sir.
night. I have camped out many times at Smith Park,
Well,
and we have seen things happen. We have heard things. I know one time we heard like these splashes, and they were like kabloosh. And you know, a beaver may slap his tail, but I mean,
he slaps, it pops.
yeah. But you know, to hear like 25 of them going on, you
Mm.
know, and we have casted footprints there. It's just, if you have not been to Fouke, you've got to go. You've got to go and camp. You got to go to Monster Mart. That's
By
just,
all means.
I just love Monster Mart and all the memorabilia that they have out there. It's just a fantastic place to go.
Denny and Miss Brenda are some wonderful people. They're very good people. Denny's doing his best to get as much information in there as he can. He has two new Bigfoot statues or figures in there with fur on them now. You got Muriel you can get your picture with. It covers a lot. And I almost forgot, it was in the mid 80s. I lived down there close to Fall Bush Landing, South State Line. You turn right like you'd be going into Gauss Lake. And two of my friends fished Gauss Lake. And one evening they came out. Robbie had parked his vehicle at my house, I believe, to best my memory. And he came in there and he was hungry. I said, well, there's a pot of pinto beans and there's all the only thing unless you want to thaw something out. And he sat there and I thought something was bothering him. I said, Robbie, is everything okay? He said, well, he said, man, don't tell nobody. Just don't tell nobody. He said, we seen something walking down them railroad tracks. It was big and it was hairy and there was two little ones with it. I said, well, did you see a bear? He said, no. He said, well, no bear. He said, I know what a bear is. You know what a bear is. And we both seen Grifter's bear. I said, yeah, we have. He said it was walking upright like a human. I said, okay. And at that point, I told him about the incident that we had there at the house. And I got home, and the wife handed me the gun in the Q beam, and they says there's something out there. And I shine a light out there above the roof of the Tornado, 77 Tornado, and you can gauge about how high that is. And then my eyes was up there about 8 foot.
Whoa.
And she felt like she'd been being harassed. And I said, if you're human, you better hit the ground. Or you better speak up because I'm fixing to bust open with this 10 gauge. No answer, and I bust open. And I heard a squall. And I went out there the next day and followed. You get on past the little pines where they had planted it and stuff that were about 6, 7 foot tall into a bigger, older growth of pines, and they was limbs busted up 8, 9 foot high, and some of them 2 and 3 inches in diameter, and there was a trail down through there, new trail, and it's stuck in my mind. And I'll tell you what, they're there, and there's not just one of them. There's never just one of them. There's a nest of them. It's I don't know how to say it, and it's got a hold of me just as bad as yellow gold fever gets a person.
Right.
So I'm pulled between gold prospecting and researching. This last year was all research. And now up there where I've been going in Georgia, where I go on to gold prospect, not too far from there, they're having quite a few reports up in there now.
We've done some researching in northern Georgia, and also a little bit of gold prospecting ourselves up there. It's beautiful up there in those mountains, and
Yeah,
to get out there and those streams and rivers it's really beautiful. Larry, I don't want to get too far behind on questions that people might have, but while you're looking for those, I just want to say that the picture that we use for the Beast TV at the beginning, that was actually taken at Fouke, Arkansas at Smith Park. And it's a beautiful picture, and it's always been one of my favorites. And so whenever we started this podcast up, I said I'm going to use that picture that we took at Smith Park.
right.
Larry, if
Well,
we got any
hopefully
questions?
by March we will have water and electricity hookups at Smith Park. Hopefully. We've got a grant going here in Miller County, and we should have electricity and water there.
Well, they've been working on it. I know the first time I went, there was it was kind of primitive, and then the next time we went, we could tell they were making improvements there.
Yes, sir. Yes, they're working on it.
All right, Keith. How old were you whenever you filmed the movie?
I was 21.
21.
Just turned 21.
Fresh out of the military.
Well, actually, I turned 21 in July of that year. I was still 20 years old. My birthday's in July, so 72, July 72, I was 20 years old when it was made. I got out of the Marine Corps at the age of 19.
Man. All right. Have you ever saw part 2 of The Legend of Boggy Creek?
I don't believe so.
Okay. That was one of the questions, what you thought of that. What was your favorite tale of the Fouke Monster that you've ever heard over the years?
Well, that's a multiple. That needs to be multiple choice on that now.
Well, you can give us 2 or 3.
I guess the incident at the Cersei house. You know, the tale back in the early '60s when all of them got together, and I didn't believe what I heard then. You know, my uncles and my uncles would have jumped on back the car and had fingers hanging, both windows hanging on, and I never believed that. You know, my uncle scared me with this one Halloween. We were inside Louisiana in the swamp, and we all out there in the swamp, away from the living, residents and stuff, houses, and all of a sudden I see something floating down through there, white and everything, and all the kids take off running, but me and my oldest cousin at the time, Sherry, and we just sitting there, and I'm like, "Is that Uncle Buddy?" She said, "Yeah." So, he gonna do that, and then later he gonna tell me there was something on top of my dad's car hanging on, and hairy fingers inside on both sides. So I never believed that. I'm sorry. Just a couple of instances I didn't believe, but with Mary Beth and Lena, I believe every bit of that. They're just, Lynn Crabtree, I believe his deal. Other Charlie Walraven, he didn't have nothing to lie about. He didn't have nothing to gain.
Right.
So I guess I have to say, Mary Beth put something over the window. You know, that right there.
You mentioned to us earlier in an earlier conversation, and somebody asked about it. Can you tell us about the school bus story?
Well, supposedly there was a total of 27 witnesses. I figure including the bus driver and then Bright Star Bloomberg. They all seen it. When they was questioned, they all give the same description, all give the same story. And as far as I know, that never got investigated other than right there, that, and I've never heard anything else about it.
Where did this take place at?
It would have been on Highway 160, going towards Bloomberg, Texas. It's what I'm thinking. Now, you got all that in there. You got the little Middle County 2, Middle County 3 down in there. I don't know if it happened on a side road, but I want to say it probably happened on the highway, which is Highway 160 between Doddridge, Arkansas and Bloomberg, Texas. It's where, and I mean, that's before Lynn's deal, Lynn Crabtree. That's before his deal. I believe. I'm almost certain it was. To the best of my memory, I'm gonna say it was. But you hear as you go on, you hear more about different sightings. I've got another friend that says he's at a birthday party in his backyard, and they live down there by the bar pits and stuff off of Days Creek, back down in there a little bit further north of where all the bishops lived and stuff, up there kind of close to Middle County 10 where I did that video. And he said they all out there, and said all of a sudden everybody took off running. He's sitting there and he said it's his birthday and he's celebrating pretty heavy. And he said he just within 20 foot of him, and he said he didn't know what to do, so he just asked him, "You want to have a beer?" You know, he said wouldn't done him no good to run. He'd been stumbling. But he swears it's the gospel. And where do you decide fact or fiction here? You know.
What was the answer?
Sir?
Did he have to sit down and have a beer or what?
He was already sitting down.
No, I mean the creature.
Oh no, he said he just kind of looked at him and then after a second or two just went back in the woods and was gone. Now this is the same guy that lived inside the hill down at Carter's Lake for 3 years. That told that.
Yeah.
This is the guy that made that chitter chatter noise when he made the Sisters of the Moon audio that I heard. It just went boom.
Right.
That's the same noise I heard on that video. Same gibberish. Now, where'd he pick that up at? He ain't seen or heard any of that audio.
Right.
He ain't even got a cell phone. You know? Because Lauren was down there and she said, "I'd like to talk to you." He said, "Okay." She said, "Well, can I get your number?" He said, "Well, I don't got a phone." I said, "I know how to get a hold of him." There's a future prospect of being grilled, I promise you, because I ain't done with him myself. He says 10 to 10:30 in the corner of Smith Park. They come in from the river about every day, and he don't got nothing to do but be in the woods.
Right.
So, and that day about 10:30, I was kind of watching. I ain't seen them yet. So there's your fact or fiction. You just have to research it, I guess.
Right.
Yep.
Well, speaking of researching, you look back at the early researchers like John Green and Peter Byrne, but really Uncle Smokey was a researcher, and he probably didn't get a lot of credit when people were doing television shows and things like that back in the 70s, but he was a true researcher.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was voted in the honorary member of Cryptozoologist Association or something, I believe. There's a lot about Uncle Smokey that lots of people don't know.
Well, let's hear some stories.
Yeah.
Well, back, I'm gonna say in the '60s, he's squirrel hunting, and I think it was before. I don't know. Might have been before you had to have a license to hunt. I don't know. I don't know when you started having to buy a license, a permit, uh, pay to hunt. But he had the 22 on Winchester, 14 shells, and a big old buck come by him, and he jumped. It got in the thicket. He jumped on the stump. He shot all 14 times. He emptied his pump out, but he didn't drop the deer. Well, a couple story is, and Granny told me this. A couple years later, Uncle Smokey got that deer, and how he knew it was that deer is because when they skinned that deer out, there was 14 little holes in its back. So he hit that deer every shot. And he come up behind people that hunted for a living, and his daddy and my great uncle. I never knew my grandpa Crabtree, but they hunted for a living and made moonshine. And when they hunted and the ducks come in, they'd be there. And my grandmother told me that either one of them could take a little pump Winchester 22 and said that duck be way on out there and then drop that duck. And then, they go get it too with a 22. Now, you figure they hunt that much and they're that good a shot. And Uncle Smokey, he got that deer with I believe it's a 30-06 pump. And that gun's still around, and Jay's got that gun. When Uncle Smokey passed, I asked Jay, I said, did you get his deer rifle? He said, yes. I said, did you get his guitar? He said, yes. So Uncle Smokey, he could pick, he done a little burglar song. I can't remember the words to it, but when we was little and he'd play that when they have a get together and stuff, you talk about entertaining us. Talk about that burglar climb in there and in come this good looking woman and he hides under the bed and then she takes the wig off and then the glass eye and then the peg leg and he could sing it. They all could, they didn't have no other entertainment. They didn't have TV back then when he growed up. They pick up guitar up. My dad could play a guitar. My dad sang Kalijah as good as anybody ever heard. Uncle Smokey, I'll never forget that burglar song. It'll go to the grave with me. I still laugh. I can see him up there, and he got the biggest smile on his face when he played that.
Uncle Smokey was a man of many talents.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
A welder, just so many things.
Well, he got his start welding in the shipyard, California. He was small, and they needed somebody to go up in them tight spots and weld in them tight spots. And he was little, and I'm sure how old he was when he started all that, but he could get up in there and do it, and he did. It was hard times in them shipyards. I think it was during the wartime too.
Yeah.
So it would have been. I think he might have been 16, 17. And Uncle Smokey's a firm believer. He educated me a little bit about a few things. He's a firm believer it's better to make a good run than a bad stand.
Yeah.
Yep. He's Golden Gloves champion in California when he was out there. He was a small, physically sized person, but in stature he was a huge man. And he still if I needed help, he helped me. And I can't say that about some of the other family.
Right.
I remember when he built that house down there, he had me paddling the judge around that lake. And I didn't think about it at the time. And I got a ticket one time, and I went up there, and I didn't think I should have got that ticket. I still don't to this day. And guess who the judge was that I went in front of with that ticket? That same judge, Uncle Smokey, had me paddling around that lake down there. And boy, I put him in that bluegill perch bed Uncle Smokey had.
Uh-huh.
And the man started, he said, well, are the fish going to bite Sunday? I said, I don't know, but I figure we'll find out. He said, not guilty, case dismissed. And that's because Uncle Smokey put me there.
Right.
He figured as wild as I was, I needed to know somebody at high places. There's a whole lot of things that don't jump into my mind that slowly they're coming back. We're talking a lifetime here.
Right.
You know? I can remember Uncle Smokey when he started building the house that on Limley Lane. Let me go further than that. The bricks put in the house that he built down on the 80-acre lake, a lot of them come out of the old post office building, and people say it's the post office building, but it used to be the bank, and then it turned into the post office. We cleaned bricks, penny a brick, for bricks for him to build his house with back in the 60s, for sure. And then when the second house he built up on Limley Lane, I come by, and he done broke about 7 cinder blocks trying to get one fit right. And I told him, I said, well, just take and scar it with the grinder and then don't hit it hard. Just hit it easy. He said, show me. I did. I got that one done, and he did one, and he said, all right. He said, that's too easy. I said, well, you're going to buy half blocks. No smoking. He was well, but he was also his cabinetry, they growed up, they done it all.
Right.
They just a whole lot there. I went out in that shop and had my son with me. We was over in his Smokey's Two Books bookstore. And he had those big turtles, the taxidermists had them stuffed, And he took a liking to my son, and he hadn't met him before. I used to go by and see Uncle Smokey at least 2, 3, 4 times a year. And he hadn't met John. He'd seen him when he was little, but he hadn't met him since and John, I think, was 16 years old. And he took him like white on rice. And he took him in there to the bookstore, showed him all that, the big turtles and everything. And then he said, I got something I want to show you. So we go out in the shop, and when I left, I ain't sure what I seen. And I don't know, I don't think it's there anymore, but I seen the remains of something, I will say that. That was Uncle Smokey. He had something in there, and some people said it was just a big cat. You can take this to the bank. It was not a big cat. I seen it.
Huh.
It did not have a head on it. Now, we will continue that subject there at a future date because I got good news yesterday. Jay moves back onto the property here real soon. Uncle Smokey's boy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He gets to move back onto the property where I want to go. So we're looking good there.
I have not been in the shop, but I know people that have been,
Yeah.
and I would love to go in there sometime and see what all Uncle Smokey had done in there, because it was real. It's just some amazing stories
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
I've heard Lyle tell, and I've heard Robert Swain tell me, and it's it's got to be something in there.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's it's definite there. Uh, let's see. When Uncle Smokey come back from Alaska, he was in a Cadillac and had this big old welding rig. I believe it was a Dodge. And I don't know if y'all have ever seen any of the pictures of his welding rigs, but I believe the man liked peppermint because he's red and white striped. He had a set of gin poles, and they was red and white striped.
Yeah.
So you got it. You know, there's just it comes and goes over the years. I wished I spent more time with the man. He taught me how to fillet fish. I didn't know how. He taught me how. I took him fishing down on South State Line in some Gifford Hill bar pits that I knew the bass was in there, and the water was down pretty low. We got the boat in and the trolling motor and the battery, and we caught. He caught. I let him fish. He caught 24 bass over 2.5 pounds, and I looked at him. I said, "Well," I said, "that's it. There ain't no more fishing here." He looked at me. He said, "Do what?" I said, "There's not any more fishing here. You caught every one of them." He said, "Well, how do you know?" I said, "Because I've been looking all the time you was fishing." I said, "I put you on every bass in here." He said, "Well, I'm taking you fishing next time." I said, "Okay." He took me down on 10-10 hole. We're scuttling the boat across logs. At the time, I wasn't as heavy as I am now. And I'd walk back to the back of the boat, and we'd get the front of the boat up there, and then I'd walk up to where the boat's on the log or whatever it is we're having to cross. And then he'd come up there, and I'd walk to the front and get the boat past the log and fish. Well, we got in this one wide spot, and I was using the bait he furnished me. It's a 3/8 H&H double spinner chartreuse skirt on it. I cast out there, and I hooked the biggest bass I've ever hooked. And I got it up to the side of the boat, and he sitting back there. He got so excited that when he moved, and I was just fixing to grab the mouth of the bass, and I could have took my hand in that bass's mouth like this right here, and never touched it. But when he raised up to get a good look at it, the boat shifted and the bass went back down in the water and got loose. That's the only time he ever cussed me. And I turned and I looked at him. I said, "Well, you the one that moved." I did, didn't I? I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm sorry." Not near as bad as I am, Unc. So I had my time with Uncle Smokey, and I don't know if any of the other nephews ever got to go fishing with him. I really don't, but I know I did.
Right.
And being around him was always a pleasure for me.
Well, I tell you that next time I come down there, I'm going to bring Larry with me, and we're going to hook up with you, and we're going to let you take us out bass fishing.
I hadn't been fishing. I quit fishing because I'm gold prospecting, and I done got too big to float in a boat. If it ain't a fishing barge, and you can't get fishing barge in most places, if you understand what I'm saying there.
Yeah.
But there's still a few good places, and they got Mercer Bow shut down.
Yeah, you
They got the gates closed. That great Sylvania aquatic vegetation,
uh-huh.
it's overtook it, and I think they're trying to kill it out.
Yeah.
But
I
on second thought about that, guess what?
what?
That show is a good research area if you can get into it.
I tell you,
I'll make you a promise on that.
I've been there on Mercer Bayou and in a boat and just have gone all over it. I know that we came up on a hog that had gotten killed in on the shore, and I tell you, it was very, very suspicious. And just that whole area. Shelly Reed was with me one time, and we were walking down this little. It was basically a little gravel path, no wind blowing, no nothing, and just had a huge tree just start cracking and come down, just almost. I mean, just in spitting distance of us. It's I'm going to tell you, if you've never been to Fouke, you need to go. It's a beautiful place. It's beautiful people that are there, and I just love going. Larry, have we got any more questions?
Well, we do have a couple. One of them was you mentioned the three-toed footprint earlier.
Yes.
Is that common in that area, or do you find a regular footprint now, or you still see those?
I'm gonna say it's irregular. There's some discussion that about that three-toed print that it might not have been a Bigfoot. That's where you got to separate fact and fiction. Is it real or is it fake? I still, to this day, that's something we won't know. We just, have to look at it and say, well, that's not like everything else we've been seeing. It's not wide enough. It was real narrow. That's the right area because Charlie Walraven sighting there. So was it a juvenile and not an adult? So that gets back to there's nest of them, family of them,
Yeah.
As far as the three-toe track, I'm not real keen on it because now the one we found into Smith Park last weekend was 19 inches. It was wide across the girth on it, and I stuck my fingers down in there, and they was 4 toe holes, and then about an inch and a half over, there was a big one. I could put 2 fingers in it real easy. Right. And the others, and now when it comes to ifs and doubts, this here ranks, in my opinion, as a real Bigfoot print because of the toes, and they had dug down. It's kind of going uphill just a little bit, and it had been wet. And there was a left print, and then the right print, and the left print was you just had to guess about it, but that right print, no sir, it was there. And then it gets a little bit more solid ground up, a little bit about a foot up on the hill, and that was the only one we found, and that was within 20 yards of where the camper was sitting.
Right.
So there you go. The three-toed track. There's a lot of traffic around that corner of that bean field at times, I believe. So I don't know. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings about three-toed track, but
calling it like you see it.
Agreement.
Right. We've got another question from Heather. She wants to know, what is the strangest thing you've come across in the woods?
The strangest thing I come across in the woods?
Or the strangest thing that's happened to you in the woods?
Was Roger Ryan walking up under my deer stand, me up in a tree, and him carrying a bobcat. Now, Roger's gone, bless his heart. But I was listening to that baby bobcat squeal,
Yeah.
And he perched up against that tree under me, and I leaned forward and I looked down. I said, "This spot's taken." Boy, he twisted that head to the left, to the right. Hey, I said, "This spot's taken." And by that time, he realized he needed to look up. He bolted and run. That's about the weirdest happening in the woods for me. Uh, they just, I don't spook easy, never have. Uh, I will, I will get quiet when I hear things normally, and there's no that would be the weirdest thing that ever happened to me in the woods was him carrying that baby bobcat and it squalling.
Yeah.
And me too, because I ain't never heard a baby bobcat before. I can, I've heard a fox calling the little ones back to the den. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that, but if you pull it up, the sound a fox makes, sounds of a fox. That's probably be the first one you hear will be a mama fox calling them little ones back. And that bobcat, I didn't know what it was. That baby bobcat. And I ain't never heard a bobcat make a noise for in my life. I can't say that I've ever heard a grown bobcat squall or nothing. So there you go on that. That'd be my weirdest ever was Roger Ryan carrying a baby bobcat.
That would be a sight.
I see where Life on Booger Hill asks, do they have gators? I can answer that because we were at Smith Park and went down the road past the rifle range to the boat ramp, and we saw one in the bayou down there in the river. And I
Is
guarantee
that
you.
when you peed your pants?
No.
There's the Gifford Hill pits over Cleve Bat owns some property in there, and we had fishing rights to it. And me and my friend had fished it for a couple of years, and I bought this little Bass Hunter fiberglass uh, Montgomery Ward Sears type, with a chair on it. And of course, I took and we're down there, and Tommy's fishing for the bank, and I'm out there in it, and I ain't realized that that gator done slipped up in that hole down there. I'm sitting in that fiberglass, uh, 4 foot wide, 9 foot long, and all of a sudden it starts levitating upward. And I'm looking, and I ain't sitting as deep in the water as I was. And I look around, and about that time it goes back down where it was. And just about that time, I seen them nostrils come out from under the front of it.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
I took and got to the bank, took the trolling motor off it, the battery out of it, and drug it out the water. And Tommy, he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Look at that 14-foot gator out there and tell me what's wrong." Ooh. I said, "Yeah." I sold that boat 2 days later. It ain't big enough.
Need a bigger boat.
Yeah, now that answers that question, but there's gators up and down Hayes Creek, there's gators up and down Salt River. I don't know if they made it up Boggy Creek yet because I ain't seen one on Boggy, but I about bet they have.
Yeah. Somebody asked what was the guy doing with a bobcat.
He was trapping back when you could trap, and he caught its mama, and he heard it, and he went and got it.
Okay. And he raised it to be 18 years old.
I don't know about that. I about imagine knowing old Roger, he probably traded it off for he might have bartered it for a case of beer or something. Back in that day, it wasn't 30 packs; it was a case. That goes back a pretty good ways. Yep.
Have we got any more questions, Larry?
I believe I've got caught up on them for now.
Okay. Well, we want to remind everybody to hit that like button for us. That helps us out with YouTube and being recommended. And I guess we need to. We're an hour and 15 minutes in here. So I guess we need to start wrapping things up, and we'll let you uh, give us some thoughts of anything that you're um, thinking about.
Getting back in the woods. Getting back in the woods. And I will be going down to Smith Park, sitting up on the pier with a telescope for a while. And hopefully, I'm thinking about doing something, trying to get something up to a little bit more monetary resources for equipment. And I'd like to be able to get a telescope at, picture type deal where you can take pictures and even video with a memory chip in it. And I'm researching that now. And I imagine at the conferences, y'all all come see us, because if you want to be informed, go to the conference. They're very educational. And the Monster Mart, it's got my vote any day of the week.
Gotta go. It's gotta be on your bucket list.
Oh yes, sir, most definite. And our new Miller County judge is all about getting Smith Park fixed up, get it plumbed in, and getting voltage down there to it. And I talked to her, and we did get the grant. And like, as I said earlier, they're shooting for March. We'll have hookups and maybe a dump station. I don't know, but there'll be a potable water and electricity. And I don't know. I do not believe we will have sewer hookups at the time, but they will be modernized bathrooms and showers in this package deal that's going. And we had a great time down there this last week. I made some new friends. Will Lunsford was there. Got to spend a little more time with him. I met Shelley. I can't remember her last name. Of course, Shane Church, Lauren
Smith,
Radio Talk host, all that stuff. It was just a good time.
Right.
And I appreciate y'all for having me on here, and back to the woods. And I'll say good night with that, and y'all have a good one.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate you coming on here, Mr. Crabtree. We have thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. No doubt about it. And I know you can't.
I'm ready to in person, and we'll discuss a few things that we couldn't on here because of the language violation, I believe.
That sounds great.
Y'all be blessed. Goodbye.
Good night. That was wonderful, Larry.
It sure was. I mean, he's got more stories than what he told, and they're great. And I know Keith's listening, and I know he can't see the live chat, but everybody in the live chat wants to thank you for joining us and say you're a great storyteller. And I know you've got many more Smokey stories and just life stories in general, but we do appreciate you joining us and sharing what you did with us tonight.
We want to know that we really appreciate all of our new subscribers and the people that have been our faithful followers. And we want to remind everybody to check out our field evidence videos. And if there's any guests that you want to see on here, like how we had Keith on, we thank Debbie for that, because somebody suggested that, and Debbie is a pit bull, and she will do her best 100% of the time Larry and I want to thank Debbie Jones and Shelley Reed for all of the behind the scenes work they do. And we want to remind everybody to check out our sister channel, Beast of the Woods, and that's Larry's channel. And our friends at Bigfoot Outlaws, Dixie Cryptid, Night Callers, and Bigfoot Odyssey. And don't forget that there is a GoFundMe page to raise money for equipment to buy for an outing on the Bigfoot Odyssey page. And we want to thank Keith Crabtree for coming on and being so generous with his stories that he told. And we will see you again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Night, night, footers.
This has been a Sawdust production.